With the new millennium on the horizon, this period of Shonen Jump's history would mark a new dawn for the magazine. It had weathered the storm that was the mid-90s, counteracting its dip in sales and circulation with several iconic series that would make up Jump's image for many years to come. 1999 would further add to this wave, providing the 90s with a glorious swan song for Jump, ending the decade on a massive high. So, without further ado, I present to you Weekly Shonen Jump in the year 1999. For our first new manga of the year, we have one of the weirdest things Jump's ever serialized, Shinkaigyo, lasting 10 chapters in one volume by Kanako Tanaka. This is a series that opens up with a sexy humanoid version of the influenza virus fighting a giant shark. Or perhaps it's right to say a very small shark, with the core premise of the series being battles between different viruses. There's also an oceanic or fish theme mixed in here, hence the shark, though its protagonist, Shinkaigyo or K1, was created by the enigmatic Dr. Rohan in order to fight said viruses, with them having a tenuous relationship. Things get further complicated from there, with K1 taking over the body of a dying boy, which leads to him attending school and eventually fighting others with virus-like powers, with it turning into the sort of battle manga you'd expect from the magazine. I find its designs especially appealing with how jagged and exaggerated all of their proportions are. I'm also a sucker for any series within the magazine that stands out as much as this does. The core premise coupled with Tanaka's artwork really sets this one apart. Its first chapter has been translated into English, and while it's readable, it isn't the best. I have heard rumblings of people wanting to fully translate this though, so if you're watching this months or years down the line, have a look to see if you can read this, as I'm sure it'll be a wild ride. Following Shinkaigyo, the magazine would be met with another series, one that would go on to be much more successful, Hikaru no Go, lasting 197 chapters in 23 volumes by Takeshi Obata, Yukari Umezawa, and Yumi Hota. After a string of shorter or cancelled works, the beautiful art of Obata returns this time better than ever, while also being paired by a spectacular story from Yumi Hota. Hikaru no Go follows the journey of Hikaru Shindo, a young boy who one day gets haunted by the spirit of an ancient Go player, Fujiwara no Sai. Sai compels Hikaru to interact with the game of Go, initially tutoring him on the basics, and through his knowledge, Hikaru comes to best players he has no business beating, including his rival-to-be, Akira Toya. Throughout the series, we see Hikaru meet numerous players, learn about the game, and gradually climb the ranks in his professional career. This is all accompanied by a turn of the millennium backdrop that includes things like Computer Go, an aspect of the series I especially love. It often delves into meticulous depth on the game, but also who's playing it, how Go works as an organized sport/board game, and the various relationships between players. It's simultaneously easy to follow, with Go being explained throughout, but as it gets its hooks into you, it sinks deeper and deeper into the game, getting more complicated, wordy, and by its end, when I read for the first time, me and my dad, who I also got to read the series, bought a Go board just to play the game. I think Hikaru no Go's simpler and complex side also extends to the game itself too, as it's easy to pick up, but mastering it is no easy feat. What makes the series so compelling ultimately is its characters, and in particular Hikaru and his relationship with Sai, with the entire story acting as a coming-of-age tale. The development of Hikaru going from this bratty and quite arrogant child to this more mature, soft-spoken and determined individual is a sight to see, with Obata's artwork getting better and better as the series goes on. You'll notice it looks more and more like Death Note by the end if you're a fan of that series, and I can't stress how much this artistic development adds to the development of Hikaru, whether this was planned or not. Seeing him get interested in the game for real, fall in love with it, and rely on Sai less and less is a pleasure to behold. With this also complicating his relationship with Sai, who wants nothing more than to play Go, and as a spirit he needs to in order to pass on. It's a series that executes so much so well. The games of Go are exciting and tense, there's mystery elements as some characters try to figure out why Hikaru is so good or who this mysterious Sai is. Then you have some hard-hitting emotional elements involving Hikaru, his growth and relationship with Sai. I've had to hold myself back a little from discussing certain elements as this is one of my favourite series Jump has ever published, but I also recognise it's one not everyone has read, and I think they really should. Almost everyone I've heard talk about Hikaru no Go will remark about how much they've enjoyed it. It's a dense, robust, and meaningful story about a boy growing up and how games, in this case Go, have the power to connect people from all around the world, from all ages, vocations, and across time. It's available on the Shonen Jump app, and there are physicals in English too, and I can't recommend it enough. While it is somewhat of a cult classic in the Western manga world, in Japan it's always been huge. Not only being one of the best-selling manga of all time, but it's also responsible for inciting a Go boom within Japan in the early 2000s, seeing the number of younger Go players triple at the time. Parents and PTAs would often recommend it as a manga for children to read, as it's educational, but I think the way it handles its character drama and development in this soft and considerate way must have been a factor too. The series also saw wider success through its TV anime adaptation lasting 75 episodes, beginning in 2001 by Studio Pierrot, which was followed by some specials. Numerous video games and a card game were released too, and as recent as 2024 a stage play was released. It's also notable for being popular in other countries throughout Asia too, understandably so as the series does feature numerous players from China and Korea in its run. There was also a Chinese live-action TV drama based on the series too. While a few other manga from this period of Jump have stood out as the faces of the magazine's next generation, Hikaru no Go is equally as important and has left a huge legacy in its wake, with it still being recognized as an excellent story, as well as a series that will go on to inspire people to pick up Go for countless generations to come.
Pegasus, じいちゃんの魂を封じ込めた闇の力を持つ男。遊戯王デュエルモンスターズはこの後すぐ。
Hikaru no Go wouldn't be the only series within Jump to be focused on games at this time, as Yu-Gi-Oh! By Kazuki Takahashi would be enjoying a fruitful year, beginning with a few battles at Pegasus's castle to culminate the Duelist Kingdom arc. Firstly, Kaiba faces Pegasus in order to win back his brother, whose soul has been imprisoned inside a card. Iconic imagery associated with the series, as well as highlighting the mystical horror elements that surround Yu-Gi-Oh! This gives us another glimpse into how Pegasus plays, utilizing his Millennium Eye to effectively read his opponent's cards, while he uses his busted Toon deck to overpower his enemies. I do think it's insane that Pegasus is the actual creator of the game, so he just has this deck full of things other duelists don't even know about, never mind have had the opportunity to use themselves. Though, this does make him a formidable foe, and I love how Takahashi illustrates all the toons. They bounce out of the page in contrast with the more jagged character art with their rounder forms. Seeing specific monsters like Kaiba's blue eyes get tuned is also a treat. You can just feel the fun Takahashi had through how they're all drawn. Kaiba is not the one to take down Pegasus though, ultimately being defeated, with Yugi having even more reason to take him down. Duels between Mai and Yugi as well as Joey and Bandit Keith take place before that though. Yugi vs Mai shows off her harpies better than ever, but the true meat of this duel lies in the lesson Yugi learns, with Mai acting as more of a teacher, encouraging Yugi to confront his true self. In this case, it's a means of getting Yugi and Yami to converse after their loss against Kaiba, with Mai stating, "It is not in victory that a duelist's courage is tested, it's after they lose." This further builds on the elements the series has been preaching. Victory in itself is not everything. Having the courage to do your best, especially for the ones you love, and growing in the process is what's key here. Inner conversation is being encouraged, and while that's literally being represented by Yugi and Yami conversing, this is applicable to anyone. This encouragement to self-reflect. This being key, as after Joey and Bandit Keith duel, Yugi attempts to defeat Pegasus, where his two sides become integral for winning. I don't have much to say about Joey's duel here. We get to see a lot of cool machine type monsters and there's a gambling aesthetic at play. Overall, it's nice to see Joey just grow as a duelist step by step, relying on the scraps of dueling knowledge he has amassed, as well as a whole load of luck. The duel between Joey and Yugi is skipped here, a little disappointing, but it makes sense. These two wouldn't want to fight each other when there's so much at stake. They trust each other, they're friends until the end, a duel between them can wait. An all or nothing match then begins with Yugi wagering everything in this duel to save everyone. His grandpa, Kaiba, Mokuba, Serenity, and even his own soul is on the line. Just like with Kaiba though, things aren't so easy. Pegasus reads his cards and assaults him with toon monsters, stealing Yugi's summoned skull at one point, which gives us this cool design. But it's then we get to see the method he'll use to defeat Pegasus. Yugi and Yami begin switching personalities, with both trusting in each other through face-down cards to win the duel. I love how Pegasus's Millennium Eye is solved. It was already baked into the series itself and tied to Yugi's character arc, as well as a central core theme of trust which pervades the series. It's fun to see the two switch between themselves throughout the duel, heightening the game whilst also being incredibly wholesome as the two bond. So much more is revealed through this game too, that the game's origins are from Egypt, an important plot point for later, Pegasus having way more than just his toons, like Relinquished, a super scary ritual monster, and Yugi's Magician of Black Chaos appearing, one of the coolest monster cards ever. With it, and the mind-shuffling strategy, Yugi manages to win, defeating Pegasus and restoring everyone's bodies back. Pegasus gets some redemptive backstory, though it doesn't amount to much as Bakura straight up murks him straight after ripping out his eye as a keepsake. Earlier on, Pegasus also made Bandit Keith blow his own brains out too. The Yu-Gi-Oh manga is no joke when it comes to violence, though personally I like the idea of these characters reoccurring in the 4Kids anime way more, especially Pegasus as he exudes charisma.
Yugi boy, Yugi boy, Yugi boy, Yugi boy, Yugi boy.
What follows is Yu-Gi-Oh stepping away from duel monsters and into a new game briefly. Dungeon dice monsters, with an opposing game store opening up opposite Grandpa's place, the Black Crown. Here we're acquainted with Duke Devlin or Ryuji Otogi, a sort of prodigy gamer who wants to steal the title of King of Games from Yugi, with his father also having a rivalry with Yugi's grandpa. This is a bit of a return to the Yu-Gi-Oh before Duelist Kingdom with incidental games. It's creative but not as cool or interesting to me as what has come before. The dice elements are cute, though I find none of the monsters match up to the more iconic ones from the card game. The best aspect of this arc is the emotions surrounding Yugi's puzzle being taken and broken, with Yami Bakura around to aid Yugi as an ally in this particular instance. Yugi is so heartbroken by all of this but must push through without Yami, an element I adore that lets his character breathe and show he's more than competent when playing games by himself, demonstrating some growth. The arc ends with Joey saving Yugi's life while he firmly grips the Millennium Puzzle in an excellent page that embodies the two's friendship. Yugi holding so desperately onto the chains of the Millennium Puzzle is interesting imagery too, perhaps subverting the immediate associations to chains or demonstrating how firm his bond is with Yami. Again, in the future, imagery of chains will appear yet again too, acting as visual representation of bonds between characters. 1999 then closes out with some intermediary chapters, setting up what's to come with Kaiba now with newfound resolve looking into the origins of duel monsters while also developing his dual disc technology. This becomes the intro to Ishizu Ishtar, some hints at Yami Yugi or the Pharaoh's backstory, as well as the first time we see the Egyptian god cards. Yugi and Taya also have a really cute date chapter where she plays DDR, which is always stuck in my mind too. A scene that really hit me while reading this time is when Yugi and Yami are talking together on the hospital rooftop post the Dungeon Dice Monsters arc. Yami mentions his origins to Yugi, and he's quick to shut down the conversation regarding this topic or the idea of him ever disappearing. Both say to each other that they want to be by each other's side forever, and I find this genuinely touching, especially when you consider the initial wish Yugi made when completing the puzzle, which was to find friends. Here he's found an especially intimate one to fight alongside, and he doesn't want to give him up. Yu-Gi-Oh is always building upon itself, its character relationships and how it explores its different values like friendship, and this is an excellent example of a scene that does just that. More and more challenges will await the two as Kaiba at the end of the year signals the beginning of a tournament to end all tournaments, Battle City. Perhaps Yu-Gi-Oh's most beloved arc, which introduces a whole host of iconic new cards and characters. We'll have to wait until next time to talk about them though, as for now, we have to dig into some other stuff related to Yu-Gi-Oh which occurred throughout the year. 1999 was a big year for Yu-Gi-Oh! Beyond the manga, as this year the OCG would finally take shape, seeing the very first cards of the game that is still alive and kicking today be printed. Yu-Gi-Oh! Volume 1 would release first, a set including just 40 cards, but huge fan favorites were among them like Dark Magician and Gaia the Fierce Knight. Throughout the year, several other sets would be released, at least something every month of 1999, growing its total card pool exponentially. While the cards would be advertised on the covers of the magazine for the first time, see issue 12 of 1999, it would take a while for cards to pop up as promotional items tied to buying the magazine itself, something the magazine would later become known for, as well as its spin-off magazine V-Jump. 1999 also saw several new video games release: Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster Capsule for arcades, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters 2 Dark Duel Stories for the Game Boy Color, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories for the PlayStation 1, which may be the first game watchers of the channel might have come across in the wild. It's also become quite popular in recent years on YouTube, notably due to its difficulty and RNG in speedruns. Yu-Gi-Oh! The movie would also debut this year, a sequel to the Toei anime also getting card tie-ins. But perhaps the most interesting thing to surround Yu-Gi-Oh! This year was the infamous Tokyo Dome riot. In August of 1999, the second Duel Monsters tournament was held at the Tokyo Dome Stadium, seeing 50,000 attendees, with 10,000 of those being unable to enter the dome. Originally, the tournament was set to be invite only, but more and more people turned up, causing Konami to cancel the event midway through, which confused and angered fans, leading to riot police being involved. There's an interesting article from the LA Times dating back to 1999, before Yu-Gi-Oh! Had even touched the West, and it's interesting to see how mystical the game is portrayed as, even giving reverence to Blue Eyes. Mark Magnia notes, one of the most sought after characters is Blue-Eyed Dragon, which has special powers, which is flat out untrue as it's a normal monster, and yet it would still be one of the most powerful cards in the game at the time. Though they may be conflating this with the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon that would see its first ever appearance and sole copy at this event. The Tokyo Dome tournament in the end was a disaster, and a few people needed to be hospitalized even, but there's a certain magic to this early era of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Duel Monsters that mimics the absurdity of the manga itself. It also goes to show just how popular the series was, with fans at this time being consistently paired up against Pokemon. If you'd like to know more about all of this, I'll leave some links in the description to a few sources I've used, but I'd also recommend the Reddit thread by Mr. Bad Guy, which is a pretty comprehensive breakdown if you want the nitty-gritty of everything in English. This is a video on Shonen Jump though, so I'll restrain myself from talking about the card game too much in the future, but I think this event is such an interesting piece of history that encapsulates the series' growing popularity. Moving on to the next new series of 1999, we would see Kentaro Yabuki debut with Yamato Gensoki at the tender age of 19. It would last a total of 17 chapters and 2 volumes, being a sword and sorcery fantasy manga set in medieval Japan. It would follow Shion, a member of the Onmyo Union, set on destroying the small nations that make up Japan one by one, with him eventually setting his sights on the Empress of Many Nations, Io. Upon meeting her, he finds his task isn't as easy as he first thought, and serendipitously, he becomes her new bodyguard. While it wouldn't last long, it set itself up as a fantasy adventure manga where Shion and Io would gather allies over time in their pursuit of Takama, a nation city at the center of Japan which could hold the key to the country's unification. This is a series you can read in English, as it has an old fan translation that's a bit stilted, but if you're a fan of Yabuki and want to read his debut work, you can. In recent years, Yamato Gensoki has retroactively become a prequel of sorts to the 2020 Jump series Ayakashi Triangle 2, with both sets of protagonists resembling each other, which I think is very cute. With Captain Tsubasa World Youth having finished in 1997, Yoichi Takahashi would return to Jump with a brand new football manga, Shukyuden Field no Okami Striker Jin, lasting just 17 chapters and 2 volumes. Setting itself apart from Tsubasa, Field no Okami would follow Jin, a young boy who aims to win the National Football Championship for his younger brother who held the same dream before passing away. Aside from Jin's motivations, he's set apart from Tsubasa by being a much more brash protagonist, which manifests itself through his role in matches. He's a forward or striker. The wolf motif he carries also illustrates this hunger and ferocity, but also a pack mentality that surrounds his team, with the series almost having a loose delinquent or gang vibe going on, Jin being the head of the pack so to speak. It reminds me of earlier Jump works, things like Hiroshi Motomiya would have serialized in the 70s or 80s. The setting itself is also quite different, initially focused on Shikoku in the south, so there's plenty of imagery surrounding the sea and coastal scenery. Despite the lengths Takahashi went to differentiate the series though, it wouldn't stick, with it going on to be heavily disliked by many fans of Tsubasa. This is likely due to multiple factors, with Jin as a protagonist coming off as arrogant, not caring about football as much as he should. He also frequently sexually harasses his schoolmates and is overall depicted as more of a ruffian. The football itself featured numerous special moves and was quite formulaic, with Jin gradually collecting the strongest teammates he could find from other teams, something often highlighted as another mark against the series. With that, I think it could be said that Field No Okami felt outdated. There were numerous brand new and exciting sports manga within Jump at this time, like Rookies, Whistle, and Rising Impact. More would even debut this year too. It was a rough year for any new sports title, and with Whistle building on the sports formula through football and having a much more palatable protagonist, this likely never stood a chance, making it Yoichi Takahashi's final serialization within Jump. Like many of his Golden Age contemporaries, he wouldn't be able to grow alongside the magazine, going on to serialize Captain Tsubasa Road to 2002 within Young Jump a few years later. It's a bit of a sad end for a legacy Jump author, one who couldn't really escape the one series that would define him, with Tsubasa even appearing within the final chapter of Field No Okami as if he was saying one last goodbye. It's only fair that after a new football manga, Jump would try a handball manga. In the issue following the debut of Field No Okami, Daisuking would begin by Munenori Michimoto, lasting 70 chapters and 2 volumes. It would take a very different approach to most other sports series at the time, through it integrating comedy and romance elements, with its setup revolving around a girl who promised its main character that they'd be together if he became a Major League Baseball player. Years later though, he finds out that she doesn't even remember this promise, and what's more, 3 other boys who made similar promises to her also appear. Together, they form a handball team in order to trounce her boyfriend, the leader of a rival school's handball team. Effectively, the series depicted handball players who were people at the top of their fields in other disciplines like hockey, judo, or even shogi, likely leading to different styles of play and jokes. Largely, the humour seems to have been praised as well as the matches themselves, though a lot of dislike hangs around the main heroine, probably for good reason. Just looking at the art, you can tell Michimoto has a lot of fun illustrating zany comedic expressions too, but the over-the-top concept, focused on a lesser-known sport and featuring a central character nobody liked, likely led to its rather abrupt cancellation. In the midst of a bunch of sports manga debuting, we would see Bushizawa Recieve by Kyosuke Usuda being another bizarre comedy manga from him lasting 20 chapters and 2 volumes. Like his former hit, Sexy Commando Gaiden, this series would also see a bizarre character, in this case Bushizawa, take the reins of a weird school club, the Hero Club, where its members would participate in various gag antics. It would gradually transition into more of a battle manga as it progressed, with the actual monsters, the jellies, appearing, initiating some fights, although Usuda's familiar style of comedy remained throughout at a diminished capacity. It seems as though fans of Sexy Commando didn't like the direction this was taken in, leading to its cancellation. However, the final chapter is largely praised, having a huge time skip into the future, where the main character Bushizawa goes to meet the main villain, who is now working at a convenience store. I totally see why this would appeal to a lot of readers, as it's a delightfully silly way to wrap up a gag manga. Mach Head would be the next manga to debut, lasting 14 chapters and 2 volumes by Keiichi Sagawa, being a delinquent motorcycle racing manga, giving us another odd sport to add to 1999's roster. The story followed Eiji Saito, the younger brother of a notorious motorcycle gang leader who wants to become just as cool as his brother. In order to do so, he trains and takes his brother's KH400 motorcycle racing throughout the night, challenging other delinquents to races. This one's in a bit of an odd camp, clearly flirting with a type of delinquent manga that Jump wasn't widely versed in, bar some successes like Rookies, Rokutanashi Blues, or Hallelujah 2 Boy, while meshing it with a more kid-friendly element with its younger protagonist. By this time, the popularity of delinquent and bike-focused manga had somewhat waned too, which is a shame as this series seems especially charming from its premise and artwork. Keiichi Sagawa's style seamlessly blends these cute poppy illustrations of its protagonist with the grittier older delinquents and bikes to illustrate something really striking. While the entire manga wouldn't serialize itself within Weekly Shonen Jump, 1999 saw Akira Toriyama pen the first 2 one-shots for Neko Majin this year. Neko Majin being another one of Toriyama's silly little ideas he'd go on to create post-Dragon Ball. Though unlike most of them, this one would be set in the same world and would go on to parody Dragon Ball itself, including actual characters from the series in some of its later short stories. Like most of Toriyama's short adventures from Jump, I won't go super in-depth here. It's charming in both its material and art, seeing the money-grubbing, lazy yet overpowered cat Neko Majin fly around unleashing Neko Hami-Has at his foes. If you're a fan of any of Toriyama's works, this is only 8 chapters or a volume in length and has been translated into English, so I'd recommend checking it out if you'd like to spend a short while reading something silly. Hunter x Hunter would return this year with us picking right back from where we left off with Gon and friends acquiring their Hunter licenses. Their first task is to find Killua, who has mysteriously returned home after confronting his brother during the exam. This takes everyone to the Zoldyck family estate, where they must overcome a few obstacles to gain entry, including opening a really heavy door, avoiding the guard dog Mike, Gon getting the crap beat out of him by the apprentice butler Canary, and passing a test involving coins. It's an odd little arc showcasing Killua's family, though only slightly. We see how much torture he undergoes to the extent he's accepted it as the norm, and things end a bit anticlimactically as his dad Silver just lets him go. It's a scene I still don't know what to make of, but there's some genuine feelings of father and son bonding, with Killua's dad wanting him to make friends. There's a sinister undercurrent that pervades this, as if those friends are just stepping stones for future plans of his. Either way, Killua is freed and the gang is back together. They run through some of their goals, with Kurapika and Leorio going their separate ways for now, but they all promise to meet back up on September 1st in York New City. In the meantime, Gon and Killua are intent on training, so they visit Heaven's Arena, a massive skyscraper with its sole reason for existing being to house thousands of fighters to battle it out to see who's the strongest. An excellent training ground for the two to get stronger and make money while they're at it. I found myself really enjoying the reread of this arc as it does quite a lot for the story, giving Gon and Killua room to just hang out. We still have the clear goal of beating Hisoka and returning his badge, but solidly Heaven's Arena establishes a core structural identity to the series. The characters are going to do what they want when they want, which might seem like a yeah duh moment, but it's so interesting how natural their desires will change on the fly, leading to the story's direction being ever changing. An example of this is how they come across Zushi and Wing, the trainee and master who are ascending the tower too, and through them Gon and Killua come to learn about Hunter x Hunter's true power system, Nen. The way Nen has been diegetically been introduced to us throughout this arc and is used to explain past events is masterful. Even though it's an incredibly detailed power system, it doesn't really feel clunky as it's set up well. It has all the complexity, different stances, and a focus on aura you might see in a more technical martial arts style power system, but it interweaves each character's uniqueness into it, giving rise to powers you might see from a more creative battle series like JoJo with its stance. There's clear rhyme and reason for each power through Nen's aura type system. A straightforward and determined person like Gon, for example, is likely to be an enhancer, which will determine what kind of Nen powers he'd be best at. This, along with the core principles which are clearly explained through this arc by Wing, gives you a great grasp on Nen, paralleling your education to Gon and Killua's. As a system, it's also really broad. You can apply other characters to it, and the snippets you get of Kurapika might make you wonder what kind of Nen user might he be, or even what kind of Nen user you yourself might be. While there are low points to this arc, its side antagonists aren't very interesting, some of the art is clearly unfinished at points, and sometimes the setting lacks the variety of the exams, there's a ton of great things here too. The concept of Heaven's Arena is exciting and super appropriate for a battle shonen series, Nen is great and will be pivotal for future arcs, Togashi hiding the series' core power system for over a year is such a ballsy move too, and I can't help but respect that. We also get a lot of scenes involving Hisoka in this arc too, with Gon wanting to give him his badge back to him. The fight between him and Castro, as well as the later Gon vs Hisoka fights, are great, with there being a lot of kinetic and tactical aspects on display as Nen is finally at play in earnest. We also get some post-fight breakdowns of how things went down, which means Togashi gets to indulge in his hyper-wordy explanations. Heaven's Arena also gives us more info on the Phantom Troop, a group we've been drip-fed info on throughout the series. Machi is revealed a member of the troop, using her doctor-type Nen to heal Hisoka, and he also has a spider tattoo, being a member of the troop, though the number 4 grafted onto his back is something he can slip off at will using his own Nen, mentioning that it's almost time to hunt some spiders, preparing us for the next arc. Before that though, we have a little break that sees Gon take Killua to his home back on Whale Island. While very short, these chapters enrich the story so much for me. It's more of Gon and Killua hanging out and just being friends. Eventually, when you meet a new person and really hit it off, you start talking deeper, and that's what we have here as the two chat about their futures and what's next. In particular, I want to highlight how we're starting to get more and more glimpses at how Killua feels, remarking that Gon is cool for having all of these goals and dreams when he doesn't really have any of that. It's clear he looks up to Gon, gradually becoming more and more enamored with him. It's not something he outright says, but it's very clear he's incredibly appreciative that he's allowed to have a normal friend and be a normal child around him, with the two then agreeing to go on a journey together to see the world and find Gon's dad. We learn a little more about him too, Ging, who has left a box for Gon, one that he could only open once he became a hunter, having 3 things inside: a cassette tape, a memory card for a video game console, and a ring. They aren't sure what it all does yet, though upon listening to the tape, it's a message to Gon. It explains a little bit about him and that he's a selfish person, someone who doesn't want to see Gon as he can't bear to face him after being a horrible parent, though if he does want to see him, he'll have to catch him. The hunter must hunt the hunter. And that's where the manga leaves off for 1999, having established a lot more of its world, future goals, and developed the bond between Gon and Killua. This year also saw the series get an anime, which is an incredibly quick turnaround, as it would be a year and some months old, having only 61 chapters by the time the anime premiered. The 1999 adaptation would run until 2001, having 62 episodes, being made by Nippon Animation. It's often praised for its atmosphere being less bright and bubbly than its later adaptation, something worth watching if you're a big fan of the series, just to see how it was adapted differently. Another history video also means another hiatus watch, the portion of the video where I outline how many hiatuses the series saw each year. 1999 saw Togashi go pretty steady throughout, having missed 14 out of the 48 total issues. As mentioned last time, Togashi's hiatuses aren't a new thing or didn't originate when the series hit its later arcs, but were present from early on. Some chapters within the year also looked a bit too sketchy, like the ones during the Hisoka and Castro fight, particularly in issue 33, which was a period preceded by quite a lot of breaks. Still, Togashi got a lot done this year, which is something worth celebrating. That's all for Hunter x Hunter and Hiatus Watch for now. I'll see you next time for more in the 2000 history video. Next up, we would see Tsunemaru return after a few prior hit manga from Jump with Survibee, lasting 20 chapters and 3 volumes. Unlike his prior ventures in Mon 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 and Midori Makibao, this animal-focused work would be a lot less gag-orientated, following Bazoo, a honeybee, and his friends as their homeland gets invaded by an army of hornets. This seems closer to a war drama than anything else I've seen from Jump, complete with it being absolutely brutal, seeing many characters meet tragic ends across its short run. I absolutely adore the art here. Tsunemaru has always had this very particular style, always drawing animals with a lot of charm, but the contrast here between the cute bugs and realistic hornets really adds to the level of suspense or even horror that's on display here. Despite its cancellation, it is fondly remembered as one of the most interesting manga Jump would serialize at the time, with many touting it as a work ahead of its time or was published in the wrong magazine. I can understand why, especially if you consider Jump having many readers who are much younger. Tsunemura was also not known for making manga that depicted this much brutality, possibly throwing off prior fans who weren't ready for this. In recent years, there have been efforts to translate Tsunemura's manga into English, with Midori Makibao having a few chapters currently, with more being translated over time, and I've heard rumblings of people trying to translate Survibee too. I can only hope that this will be readable in the future for all to see, as it's one of the most interesting and different series to ever come out of the magazine. Next up, we have arguably the most influential manga of the year, a series that's monumental, spanning 381 chapters and 42 volumes by Takeshi Konomi, the Prince of Tennis. 1999 has a clear debut that's become a cultural touchstone for the anime and manga world in a later series I'll mention, but equally, Prince of Tennis should not be overlooked. It's not really something that comes up all the time in discussions surrounding Shonen Jump's biggest manga, as the success of Prince of Tennis has not been translated into the West. It was popular when it debuted and there was a physical English release, though from what I can tell its popularity pales in comparison to how it's viewed in Japan. It all begins with Ryoma Echizen stepping into Seishun Academy, a boy who lives and breathes tennis, a prodigy or genius who uproots the entire tennis club, cementing himself as one of its starters immediately. He is short, the youngest player by far, and extremely cocky, uttering his catchphrase, "You've got a way to go," to almost everybody he meets. He's introduced as a flawless phenom, a player so gifted he barely struggles, and depending on how you feel about it, you might love him or really dislike him. At least at the beginning, I fell into the latter camp because he is a little shit. The important distinction here though is he can back himself up. He is, like the title of the series suggests, the Prince of Tennis. This is not an underdog story, and it reads more like you're following the big bad rival team of a sports manga, with the entire roster at Seishun being especially gifted and many having unpleasant personalities initially. What this does is make it a little stunted at the beginning, though the matches are by no means rookie affairs, with them being pretty explosive from the get-go. Losses for the protagonists aren't super common, and when they do happen, they serve as big team building moments, but for the most part we move on from local tournaments to the regional ones to the national stage. At the same time, chemistry between its cast grows, they become a lot more fun and more likable as Konomi concocts a bunch of rival teams with even more unlikable traits as adversaries. As soon as some of these enemy teams crop up and get more screen time, the final pieces are in place and the series began to strike a chord with me. When I mentioned Prince of Tennis was like reading a sports manga where you follow the big rival team, it's actually that, but also all the enemy teams are the big rival team too. The escalation is intense, not only due to more and more being at stake as Seishun move up the tournament ladder, but physically games go from being somewhat realistic to moves being depicted in over-the-top ways. A character might be moving so fast it seems like there's two of them, but that's just some visual flavor. It builds with characters piling on honest-to-god special moves, different states, or power-ups, and the known laws of physics begin to break with later matches including serves that literally push characters out of the court. Balls are sliced in half, rackets break and lead to insane injuries, the courts being played in start to fall apart. People play tennis so hard, they almost die. It becomes spectacularly silly in a way I can only describe as joyful. This is a series where one of the final antagonists has the title Child of the Gods. It's a series where characters have visual transformations that change their eyes or skin color. It's a series with a 3-chapter long barbecue arc. It's a series that gets so out of hand by the end, but it owns that and has earned it, wrapping it all up in this final message about having fun with what you're doing at all times, be it through playing the game of tennis or through reading manga. There are a lot of things I feel the series doesn't do well. It's initially not very appealing, its cast takes a while to become likable, it won't appeal to people who want a serious sports manga. Ryoma may also be an especially bland character depending on your preferences. But despite all of this, it's a beloved series that people were enamored by as soon as it debuted, which you can see by it getting a color page by its 5th chapter, then one at chapter 9, then a cover by chapter 19, going on to have countless more throughout its 8-year run. Its cast of pretty boys attracted tons of female readers to Jump, with them fawning over them so much that every single year, alongside a regular popularity poll, there was a poll showing off how much Valentine's chocolates each character received, with different characters being gifted hundreds each every single year. In a broader sense, Konomi's technical drawings wowed readers. While I'm not a fan of his character designs, he can absolutely draw tennis, filling his pages with detailed illustrations of rackets, serves, and I love the way he lays out his pages, often intuitively, using things like the path the ball is traveling on or rackets to draw reader eyes or to act as panel boundaries. It's always clever, creative, and clearly shows what's going on. All of this energy from its over-the-top tennis matches, larger-than-life characters, and gorgeous art builds into this one-of-a-kind series for the time that helped it stand out amongst Jump's new lineup of hits. And while it isn't as remembered as a few of the other bigger manga from Jump, it deserves to stand beside them as one of the hit series that carried Jump throughout the 2000s. This becomes even more evident when you look outside of the manga itself. Prince of Tennis would receive an 178 episode anime adaptation by Production IG beginning just a few years after its debut in 2001. Countless OVAs exist too, spin-off anime films, live-action films, Chinese live-action dramas, video games, a radio show, a trading card game, albums, all sorts of merch, though for Prince of Tennis specifically, one type of adaptation stands out above all others. Apart from the original source material, Prince of Tennis has been especially influential in the world of stage play musicals. Stage plays or musicals adapting popular manga are ubiquitous now, famous even as a companion piece to the original works, with many fans getting excited over seeing their favourite stories through new lenses featuring actors they also adore. Often, these are referred to as 2.5D musicals, referencing the idea of a two-dimensional work, game, manga, or anime, being brought into the real world. While Prince of Tennis wouldn't be the first one of these, with many existing since the 1970s, with certain ones adapting Jump properties like Hunter x Hunter being notable, the popularity of these productions exploded when Prince of Tennis began to be adapted in this form. Since 2003, there have been so many 2.5D productions adapting the various arcs, concert variations, even performances in other countries aside from Japan. The term 2.5D musical is also attributed to Prince of Tennis, and at this point it's synonymous with these types of performance, with the series selling millions of tickets across its 4 seasons and counting, with each season repeating the story again with a new cast. This brought a whole new group of fans into the series, notably a lot more older women, and I'm sure some did end up buying the manga and magazine as a result of the 2.5D musical's popularity. Prince of Tennis has also had a lasting legacy through other manga, seeing the gag comedy strip Prince of Tennis After School be published in Jump SQ, where it is still running to this day. And new Prince of Tennis also runs within Jump SQ as well, being a direct sequel to the original series beginning in 2009 and with it set to end relatively soon, having an impressive 17-year run, making it one of the longest Jump series of all time. Childragon by Keishin Azuma would debut next, lasting 14 chapters in 2 volumes, and the best way to describe this one is
No freaking way this dude pulling off these Bruce Lee moves. What the fuck? Yeah, kick his ass on!
a Bruce Lee action comedy manga. The series follows Ryuji, a boy who asserts that he is the reincarnation of the Dragon, or Bruce Lee, who goes on to help out his classmates and engages in silly fights with other students while maintaining his Bruce Lee-obsessed persona. Over 2 decades later, this series comes across as particularly weird in how specific it is, though overall, it was a pretty standard school gag series with some battle elements that wouldn't stand out amongst 1999's bigger newcomers. While this year would mostly stand out due to the debut of a particular series and artist, 1999 saw another exceptionally popular mangaka debut in the magazine, Tite Kubo, with Zombie Powder, lasting 27 chapters and 4 volumes. Before his dark and brooding spiritual battle manga would rule the 2000s and 2010s, Kubo started out with a much shorter series set in a western setting following Gamma Akutabi, a chainsaw-wielding bounty hunter looking for the miraculous rings of the dead. While rough around the edges, Zombie Powder is filled with Kubo's varied and stylish character designs and an appropriate amount of blood and edge, with the series getting surprisingly gory at times. For the most part, it's a pretty simple battle manga, though the hints of its world and mysteries throughout are something I find quite compelling, and due to its cancellation, they're never really answered, giving the series an ominous aura. Undoubtedly, even at this early stage, Kubo has the source. He at least knows how to make things look cool, and perhaps controversially, I think I'd rather have 700 chapters of this than Bleach, but that might have more to say about my preferences for the Western setting and huge chainsaws. I'd recommend reading it if you're interested in what Kubo did before Bleach, or alternatively, I did make a video on the series way back in 2024 if you'd like to hear me talk about it a little more. Returning to One Piece, we have a pretty big year to run through, with 1999 opening up with the beginning of Arlong Park, where Nami has taken off with the Going Merry, who seems to have betrayed the crew. Initially, we also get a bunch of lore drops. The 7 warlords are first mentioned here. Jinbei is also mentioned all the way back here too, being responsible for letting Arlong return to terrorize the East Blue, being the strongest pirate Luffy and co have to face yet. There are a lot of other elements present in this arc which will become mainstays for future ones, like the crew being split up and needing to reunite, something that can actually happen now as we're juggling quite a few characters. We also have a much more stationary threat who is terrorizing a group of innocent people. Arlong having made his base around a group of villagers who he frequently takes money from as a sort of toll, threatening to destroy the village and kill everyone if they don't pay up. He is further built up to be an absolutely dastardly antagonist throughout when we see what he did to Nami and her family, killing her mother Belmare in a tragic flashback and essentially making her his slave, branding her with a tattoo and forcing her to make maps under the guise that should she collect enough money, she can buy her village back. A core reason why this arc is so beloved and resonated with many at the time, and even now, is Nami. The emotion surrounding her, her enduring spirit, and that getting crushed by Arlong, leading to the famous "Luffy help me," which still makes me tear up to this day despite watching or reading this moment over a dozen times. It epitomizes Luffy and One Piece's core thesis that everyone should be allowed to be free and those who would oppress others need to be taken down. The justice delivered by Luffy hits twofold, as not only is he physically beating Arlong, but in the process he destroys the room Nami spent so much of her life in drafting maps. There is so much catharsis seeing her be freed, seeing all the work she did under her captors be reduced to scattered papers on the wind, as now she gets to start again with true friends by her side. Friends who also fight for her, the walk to Arlong Park being iconic. And then we get little fights for each of the cast too. Usopp shows that while cowardly, he will do his best to stand up for his allies. Zoro, even while half dead, will fight to the bitter end to prove he is the best swordsman in the world, and Sanji gets to show off his skills as well as loyalty by saving his newfound captain. We also get to see more marine corruption in this arc and the introduction of a new race, fishmen, that will heavily intersect with the series' core ideas of freedom much later down the line. For now, we get to see Arlong further restrict and subjugate people based on their race as well, stating fishmen are naturally stronger and more deserving of positions of power. Everything builds him up to be so satisfying to take down. His design is also memorable, as is his fight with Luffy, which Oda manages to sneak in some silly fun antics along with the more serious stuff. All in all, it's a great arc that is the crown jewel of East Blue, having long-lasting impacts on the story and its ideas. The next portion of the story is a lot more relaxed and adventure-filled, seeing the Straw Hats visit Logetown, a port town which is often the last stop for those heading out onto the Grand Line. We get some nice scenes of the crew shopping around, Zoro getting some new swords, Sanji buying the elephant tuna, and Luffy almost getting executed by Buggy, who comes back for revenge, paralleling Gold Roger's execution. This arc also sets up more of the marine presence of the series. Captain Smoker catches sight of Luffy, a devil fruit user who is much stronger than they faced before. A mysterious hooded figure called Dragon also rears his head too, saving Luffy at a few pivotal moments. Escaping Logetown, the crew then ascend Reverse Mountain, the only way into the Grand Line, and I think it was around this moment when I really started to appreciate how fun One Piece's world and setup was in earnest. The way Oda explains the world's geography of how you can't just sail into the Grand Line due to the calm belts, which are filled with dangerous sea creatures, so you must go a very specific way instead. The world is segmented in this particular way that makes it exciting to explore, and only made more exciting when the crew are in the Grand Line and have to navigate from island to island by using log poses. Oda creates these tangible rules that are easy to understand but fun, leading to you always wondering what's next. One Piece is great at doing this actually, as there's a constant stream of things you're looking out for. What's the next island we're visiting? What devil fruits might we see? Who is the next Straw Hat going to be? The sense of adventure that surrounds the series because of these aspects is unparalleled. 1999 would also end with a few smaller arcs. Reverse Mountain seeing the Straw Hats get swallowed by the giant whale Laboon, who they befriend and promise to meet again once they've sailed the Grand Line and found the One Piece. In the interim, they are joined by Mr. Nine and Miss Wednesday, who take them to Whiskey Peak where they're hailed as heroes. They drink and eat to the heart's content, but this is a trap orchestrated by a group known as Baroque Works who hunt pirates throughout this stretch of the Grand Line. Before they know it, the Straw Hats are embroiled in a country-spanning political plot when Miss Wednesday is revealed to be a double agent of Baroque Works, secretly being Princess Nefeltari Vivi, who is trying to save her country of Alabasta from the brink of civil war. So much happens in such little time during Whiskey Peak. It's especially chaotic, featuring Luffy and Zoro duking it out, multiple character reveals, allegiance swaps, and it's all a little much, but it does help convey the sense of chaos the Grand Line represents. The year would then close out with Vivi seeking passage on the Going Merry, giving us a temporary crew member, and Miss All Sunday appearing. The right hand, or many-handed woman of Mr. Zero, the antagonist of this next saga. She goads the Straw Hats and tries to convince them to head straight to Alabasta, but Luffy, wanting to go on an adventure on his own terms, leads them to the next island of their journey, Little Garden, which is ominously foreshadowed by Miss All Sunday as a place they might never return from. This year really saw One Piece grow, move on to the next stage of its now decade-spanning journey as things get more dangerous and bizarre. Devil fruit users have become a lot more common, weird creatures appear a lot more like Karu, Vivi's trusty steed. We're also getting even more name drops of things to come in the near and far future. The world-building aspects of the series are about to go into overdrive, and many breadcrumbs have been scattered which will be revisited hundreds of chapters from now. Just on a storytelling and character basis, we're also seeing a lot of crew interaction during and post Arlong Park as the Straw Hats firmly become a unit, though not without some scrapes like we saw in Whiskey Peak with Zoro and Luffy. Within Shonen Jump at this point, it was firmly the face of the magazine, with Luffy being front and center on all group covers, and with the series getting many solo covers throughout the year. Its popularity would also grow even more as October of 1999 would mark the beginning of Toei's anime adaptation of the series, one that's still ongoing to this day, having 1,155 episodes as of writing. While it has its ups and downs, portions of the story that are stretched out or poorly paced, it's still an adaptation of the story a lot of people love, and personally, I think its early parts are especially charming. The filler at points, Loketown specifically, also adds quite a lot to its world, which I can't help but adore. And with that, our coverage of One Piece comes to an end, with us heading to multiple different islands next year. So let's set sail and we'll land somewhere new in the next video. Lasting 700 chapters and 72 volumes by Musashi Kishimoto, we have Naruto, an exceptionally famous ninja battle series and one a lot of you have probably been waiting for. It begins in the village hidden in the leaves, where we see a young troublemaker defacing the mountainside monuments of past village heroes. This is Naruto. He is the village's wild child, its prankster, with this being a regular occurrence. His usually loud and impish exterior hides a much softer side, with him acting out due to loneliness, with Naruto being an orphan child, one who lost his parents and had a violent nine-tailed fox spirit sealed within him, making him weary in the eyes of most of the village. This has led him not only to adopt his prankster mentality, but also the goal of becoming Hokage, village chief. He wants to earn everybody's respect and surpass everyone who came before him, possibly to make one big happy family for himself. Naruto isn't great at being a ninja though, frequently watching tests, which ultimately leads him down a very rocky path despite trying his best, and in doing so he accidentally learns a forbidden technique, the Shadow Clone Jutsu, giving him his signature fighting style which involves cloning himself. To this day, I think Naruto's first chapter is one of, if not the strongest introductions to a series I've ever read. It establishes its world and a few characters in no time at all, but primarily it fully expresses to readers who Naruto is and conveys his pain. For any children, especially those in their teens reading, I think Naruto's loneliness and the subsequent acceptance his teacher Iruma shows him is very powerful. We'll explore the series over the course of many videos, but at its inception, Naruto opens as a character who you want to root for. 1999's chapters would see some episodic stories take place which would flesh out the setting and introduce new characters like his classmates Sakura and Sasuke, pairing the three together, who all hold various feelings, or lack of feeling in Sasuke's case, for each other.
She's kinda gay to me.
Naruto at this stage is actually quite lighthearted, for the most part relishing in a lot of jokes while mixing in a bunch of action, some light romantic elements, and character drama in a way that makes me feel as though Kishimoto was feeling out what worked and what didn't, though all of it flows relatively smoothly. Not much Naruto actually happened in 1999 as it debuted at the tail end of the year, with most of it being the story's initial setup. Even so, it was popular from the very beginning, getting a cover and lead color at its 15th chapter, and a cover for its first volume release by chapter 22. Nowadays, Naruto is often regarded as a benchmark for a lot of shonen, with a lot of its tropes and traits being iterated on. I think it's important to realize that back in 1999, this likely felt quite fresh. Its core cast of characters and their dynamic are quite different from anything else in the magazine, and Naruto himself has a zing to his character. His foolishness mixes with his determination and loneliness to create a character unlike other heroes of the time. Ninjas may have also been on the reader's subconscious, as Ninku was quite popular a few years prior, but didn't quite get the time and space to blossom for various reasons. Naruto is another slam dunk for Jump, with it being immediately popular, something that would translate outside of Japan too, with it being one of the faces for anime and manga the world over since its debut. Much like other popular series, it would receive countless games, trading cards, merchandise, movies, a beloved anime adaptation, and so much more. Keep an eye out, as in future videos, we'll be tackling Naruto arc by arc as we explore Jump's history. Romances by Yuko Asami would be the final new manga of the year, lasting 19 chapters and 3 volumes, being based on a one-shot from a few years prior. The world of romances sees people with special powers bend the rules of reality to their favor by uttering special words of power, with the series having a mix of battle and humanistic elements to tell dramatic stories. It would follow Takara Migawa, a romancer looking for someone named Kagami, while also helping the police out with various cases beyond their control, often involving other romancers. From my understanding, the words of power system is quite interesting, with each character having a particular word which they can use to alter reality. Often this word has negative connotations, like Takara's power word, lie. There are also other stipulations surrounding the word's usage. They can't be used on the romances themselves, and they must utter the word while touching the subject they wish to affect. Their effects only last a limited amount of time, and are also proportional to the desires of the romancer. What Yuko Asami then created was a supernatural drama mystery series that was surrounded by this nighttime city setting and a gentleness in the form of its cast of beautiful boys. Its quieter vibe might have been overlooked in favor of the many new louder series within the magazine at the time, with it also not evolving much from Asumi's prior series in Wild Hearth. This also losing the animal elements of that series may have been a point of appeal that readers found interesting there, which this series lacked. Sadly, this would be Yuko Asumi's final series in the magazine, and it looked like post this they would stop creating a manga, only later going on to do doujin work.
このジョルノ・ジョバーナには夢がある。テレビアニメ「ジョジョの奇妙な冒険黄金の風」僕はギャングスターになります。
To round out the year, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5 Golden Wind, as well as the original unbroken run of the series, would end this year, with Passione facing off against Diavolo. Upon waking up from the prior year's events, all our cast members find themselves in different bodies, which is such an interesting setup for the finale. This means Mr. and Trish have swapped, leading to some good comedy, Giorno and Narancia, Polnareff and the Turtle, and Diavolo with Bruno. This aspect of the arc is especially interesting to me, as most of the time we actually get to see Diavolo, he isn't really him, which creates this disparate image of the antagonist. It's kind of perfect with how his character has been constructed and how Diavolo wishes to not be perceived. Even when we do perceive him, he is not himself. There's a lot of intrigue surrounding who is who here and where exactly Diavolo is. Also, this whole body swap I feel demonstrates ideas of characters literally stepping into each other's shoes, promoting empathy and understanding, which Part 5 has dipped into here and there. Think back to Narancia's moment where he swims back to the crew at San Giorgio Maggiore, Trish's pain is my pain. It's an instance of a brilliant idea present in Part 5 that sadly doesn't get quite as much breathing room as I'd like, but it's still entertaining. A lot goes on in this part of the story, the body shuffling, needing to chase after Silver Chariot Requiem to bring everyone back to normalcy, finding out where Diavolo is, and with everyone preoccupied, a time skip occurs from King Crimson, leading to Narancia's sudden and brutal death. This always shocked me because it comes out of nowhere, and as much as I do like that feeling of shock, the tragedy of such a sweet soul being snuffed out in an instant, I can't help but feel it was just used as a way to return Giorno's body back to him for the finale, as well as give him a crucifixion-esque death pose to build on his Messiah aesthetic. Araki is no stranger to taking out his characters one by one near the end of the story, and this builds onto Part 5's fairly tragic end. The final battle includes Mr., Giorno, Trish, and Bucciarati chasing Silver Chariot Requiem, trying to attain the stand arrow in an almost impossible race. An aspect of this I hardly ever see mentioned is how the Requiem powers transform every living being into something else. It's an incredibly bizarre and horrific outcome that sees everybody morph and contort in strange ways. It's appropriately body horror filled and right up Araki's alley. I suppose for a series that explores the beauty and legacy of humanity, having it contort and become something else entirely is appropriate as a kind of antagonistic force for the series. It is ultimately revealed that inside of Mista's original body, the Diavolo portion of Diavolo has taken root, which instigates a bloody confrontation as all parties attempt to overcome their fates, aside from Bruno, who after revealing the secret of defeating Requiem, leaves the rest to Giorno and ascends above. Spurred on by Bucciarati's passing words, Giorno grasps the arrow, the sun comes out again, and Golden Wind Requiem is born. At this point, Giorno just wins, damning Diavolo to an endless fate of death over and over as we reach our conclusion, but not before one final short flashback arc. Sleeping Slaves is odd. It's probably the single most contentious part of all of JoJo, capping off Golden Wind by seeing Mista come face to face with the Rolling Stones, a stand that stalks those fated to die, mercifully killing them in a peaceful way to spare them from their inevitable fate. It's an arc that reinforces the ideas of fate toyed around with throughout this part, but I can't help but feel it's tacked on in a clunky way. I've thought about Part 5 and Rolling Stones over and over, and to this day I'm still not sure if it's advocating that fate is inevitable, or if we should push against it and create our own paths, as that's what the part and JoJo overall embodies to me. Another aspect I think the part explores is the idea that even if you're fated to die, through your life you can still create or inspire meaningful change, and that's an idea I'm quite partial to. While it was a path of much hardship, in the end victory is achieved. The sleeping slave that is fate is set free, and the world is made a much better place due to the sacrifices of Passione. Like Part 3, the end is bitter, but I wish for a little more. There's a coldness to seeing Giorno sit in the boss's chair for me. I simultaneously feel dissatisfied, frustrated, but that feeling has value, I think. The theme of fate is hard to digest. The final author's note by Araki in Golden Wind's eventual English volume release lends itself to this feeling, and it reads, "On the other hand, if our fates are already decided, we start to think there's no point in making any effort or in feeling joy. That's the problem. As I portray my ode to humanity, I'm always grappling with that dilemma. Is there even an answer?" I long for a more cohesive end to the part, something that sits a little better, but knowing Araki's feeling on tackling fate as a core tenet of the series puts my mind at ease somewhat. It's still something he's exploring, and it's a subject worth pondering over. As I mentioned a few videos ago, Purple Haze feedback also exists and offers a bit more of an epilogue to the series, which I heartily recommend if Part 5's ending frustrates you. But with that, we've reached the conclusion to JoJo. Araki finally takes some well-earned time off, having penned the series for over a decade with minimal breaks. And while the magazine would see him absent for a while, it wouldn't be too long before his return, but that's best saved for another history video. We started the year with one of the best lineups the magazine has ever had. One Piece headlines the magazine, and by its side are the other new hit series in Hunter x Hunter, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Shaman King, and Hoshin Engi. For the old guard of the magazine, Rurouni Kenshin is still running, as is Hell Teacher Nube, Hallelujah 2 Boy, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Sports manga is doing really well at this time too, with Rookies, Whistle, and Rising Impact giving us a range to pick from. The new Hikaru no Go acted as another smash hit, while it brings board games to the magazine. For the variety is then added with the ecchi rom-com Eyes, and the student council drama series Muryote Goto Seijiro. For comedy, Sekimatsu leader Den Takeshi and Hanasaka Tenshi Tenten are joined by the ever-reliable Kochi Kame. The only two duds running at the time would be the comedy detective series Boku wa Shonen Tantei Dan and the bizarre recently debuted Shinkaigyo. We have quite the structured roster here with 3 solid sports series, 3 solid gag series, a few different things here and there to add variety, and then a ton of classic battle manga which would embody this period of the magazine. Big changes would mark 1999 with almost all of the magazine's older series coming to a close, like Rurouni Kenshin, Hell Teacher Nube, Hallelujah 2 Boy, and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure finally coming to a close after over a decade of serialization. Muryote Goto Seijiro would close out its shorter run too, as would Shinkaigyo and Boku wa Shonen Tantei Dan, giving us quite a few slots to fill. While we did see quite a few heavy hitters leave, we would also be blessed with Naruto, a series that would go on to define not only the magazine, but manga in general, lasting over a decade. Prince of Tennis would be no slouch either, adding yet another sports series to the magazine that would be popular for years to come. We then have Romances and Zombie Powder, 2 series which wouldn't quite make the cut long term, but things feel a little empty, and that's because the very beginning of 2000 would bring us 2 brand new series. So here's a sneak peek, if you will, at the new millennium of Shonen Jump. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure would return with Part 6 Stone Ocean, and Haruto Umezawa, creator of Hallelujah 2 Boy, would return with his delinquent musical series Bremen. Firmly, I feel like we've stepped into a new era of Jump. So many of the old guard ended this year, a series which helped the magazine keep afloat through its turbulent mid-90s, and now what we're left with are series that feel comparatively hip and modern, manga that would redefine the magazine and remain popular to this day, with many having a profound, long-lasting legacy. It's an especially exciting time for the magazine too, and I can't wait for you to join me in the next video as we delve into Weekly Shonen Jump throughout the year 2000. I've done my best to get this one out a little quicker than the last 2. As we progress throughout Jump's history, more and more info exists for each series, and there are many big series which I want to touch on and give you my thoughts on at length. For the majority of manga fans, things like One Piece, Naruto, and Hunter x Hunter are series they've read as well, and by talking about what happened in those series each year, I hope it brings some context or sense of place to everything that surrounded them. This was quite a fun year to cover too, since we had a lot of big hits, some shorter notable ACT series from important authors we'll see very soon, and a ton of interesting cancelled series that never get talked about. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about Jump as much as I did researching and writing this, and if you did, consider liking the video, sharing it around, and subscribing, as all of those things help me out a ton. If this is your first Shonen Jump history video, then you're in luck, as I have covered the magazine's entire catalogue of manga from its beginning in 1968. The first few videos I made might be a little harder to get through as I made them a very long time ago. I'd like to even redo the 60s and 70s portion at some point, but hopefully you enjoy the previous videos and can find some interesting manga to read from them. I'd also recommend checking out some of the other stuff on the channel if you're interested in manga and Shonen Jump. I cover a lot of cancelled stuff from the magazine in more depth, like I mentioned with Zombie Powder, with me having over 40 Axe files now covering cancelled series which didn't quite get their time to shine. As always, a huge thanks goes out to my many patrons who without I wouldn't be able to put so much effort and time into these videos. It's because of their generous support that I'm able to make these as detailed as I have, which also goes for their length too. If you'd like to help me in the creation of future History of Jump videos, you can join the Patreon for as little as $1 a month, where you'll get access to some bonus videos, usually related to Shonen Jump or manga. There are also polls where you can suggest or vote on which cancelled series I might cover next too. The only difference between the tiers is at the $3 tier or higher, you'll also get a little doodle drawn by me beside your name in the credits of videos to represent you, like all of the cool following people: Trinity, Jade, Kaizoku Gairu, Soroquel Zero, Holly the Apothecary, Mayu, It's Faco, Yellowtail, Lay Sloggett, Chris P. Bacon, Cho Henshin, Full Metal, Unquestionable, Yozakura Psycho, Wurzel, Violent, Cactus, Joni, City Name E, Vino Burrito, Caffeine Dad, Cryonaut, Crash, 41IZ, Hong, Jamie Reynolds, Manu, Poke Emblem, James Miller, Jopa Monkey, Just a Virus, Star Sphinx, PK Broly, Fenrir Black, Elijah Espinoza, Neo Humanoid, Mark Nielsen, Electropirate, Jay Vasso, Three Frogs in a Trenchcoat, Sir Flash, Gay Shark, Slimy Okra, Giddista, Wavy Sky, TG Talks Manga, John Jerry 722, Andrew, Xenomant, Missile, Tara Elizabeth, Stratomega 13, Dennis Tambik, Jubei, Lise, Frog Dude, Back on Earth, Yustin Maikage, Papa Aeon, Gwenta, Mamina, Nazarashi, VHS Enthusiast, Kaito 4, Altair, Hilltop, Vako Draws, Otaku Gamer X, Deadpan, Shy Monkeys, Jonathan Dragonet, John Sanford, Color, Jaime, Strawberry Poshone, Vaz, Palette, Ruiner, Juice, Kuromi Nox, Eric Gorski, Miss the Shira, Gross Exploder, Dextora, Enya Showo, Cheese, Emmy, Benjamin, Tenmaku Lover, Taifumi Studios, Ignate, Iliades, Gyrus, Kanojo, King Snacks, Siderune, Daniel, Melons, Ichiu Zulu, Modest Matt, and Archgoat PL. Thank you all so much for being patrons, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Remember to be kind and take care.